Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is exploring some really challenging source material. It looks at this radical idea that DNA might have, well, non-material properties.
Exactly. Wave-based attributes. It's quite a conceptual leap. We're looking at experiments, sources describing how DNA can apparently produce these wave replicas.
Yeah.
Repliques ondulatoires, they called them,
Okay.
replicas of itself and even its surroundings.
Okay, that definitely challenges the standard genetic model, the whole triplet code thing.
It really does. Throws a spanner right in the works, potentially.
So wave replicas, here's where it gets really interesting for me. How? I mean, what are they exactly? And what makes them show up?
Right. So the sources describe these in vitro DNA preparations, basically DNA in a lab setting. And these replicas, these visual patterns, they only appear when the DNA is hit with specific electromagnetic fields,
What kind of fields?
mostly in the UV to infrared range. That seems to be the trigger. But, and this is crucial, it only happens with the DNA present and the field active. Ah, okay, so you need both. No DNA, no waves, no fields, no waves.
Correct. It's not just an artifact of the equipment. The DNA seems to be actively translating that energy.
You said they replicate surroundings, too, not just the DNA molecule.
That's what the papers claim. It suggests DNA isn't just sitting there, but maybe interacting with its environment in a very unexpected way.
That sounds, well, incredibly complex, almost like it's scaring things.
The term they lean towards is holographic interaction. But wait, it gets even stranger. There's this property called remanence,
Remnants, meaning...
meaning the replicas can actually persist. They can stick around for a while after you've turned off the EM fields that created them.
Hold on. So the energy source is off, but the wave structure, it stays.
Sometimes for quite a duration, yes. They call it the ghost or phantom.
A genetic ghost.
Yeah.
Okay. That implies the information, the structure, can exist independently of the initial energy input.
Wow. And the second point you mentioned earlier about interaction.
Yes, interaction with the physical world. This is fascinating. They applied a mechanical shock directly to the DNA sample itself, like a jolt.
And what happened to the ghost, the replica?
Instantly, its position vector, its direction in space, flipped, went to the diametrically opposite point,
Flipped just from a physical nudge.
just from the shock, and then within about 5 to 8 seconds, it completely vanished.
Vanished. Even though the equipment, the EM fields, were still running.
Even with the initiation equipment still active, poof, gone.
That sounds like something out of science fiction, honestly.
Okay.
Were there controls? Did they test other substances?
Oh, yes. Very rigorous controls mentioned in the sources. They tried things like sodium chloride, tartaric acid, even chlorophyll. None of them showed this effect. No replica generation, no flipping, no vanishing after a shock.
So it really seems specific to DNA, this weird energetic reactivity.
That's what the evidence presented suggests, yes. Unique to DNA.
All right, let's step back. The big picture. If DNA can behave like this, what does it actually imply for how our genetics work? For, memory inheritance?
Well, connecting these dots, the researchers proposed that maybe DNA functions partly as a holographic medium, that it has these non-local wave attributes built in.
Holographic, so less like a blueprint, more like a complex interference pattern storing information?
Kind of, yeah. Think less static map, more dynamic recording. It could store vastly more information in potentially accessible waveforms.
Could that potentially explain things like junk DNA, the
Yeah.
parts we don't have a clear function for?
That's one of the major implications they explore. If memory is also stored holographically in waves, maybe that's where a lot of that non-coding DNA comes in. Storing ancestral memory, maybe?
Which could link to things like non-Mendelian heredity, when an old ancestral trait suddenly reappears generations later.
Exactly. It wouldn't necessarily be a new mutation, but maybe the reactivation or rereading of an old stored wave pattern. Information retrieved from the hologram, so to speak.
The sources even suggest a potential downside, right? A risk associated with this.
Yes, a rather provocative one. They theorize about high UV doses, like a bad sunburn. The idea is that this intense UV could damage or scramble this holographic regulation in skin cells.
Okay. And then what?
Then later exposure to red or infrared light from the sun acting like a read beam in holography might reconstruct a flawed or pathological image. They float this as a potential contributing factor to things like melanoma, aberrant holographic signaling.
That's a heavy implication.
Yeah.
Linking sunburns to faulty wave genetics. So this deep dive really shifts the view. DNA isn't just a chemical list. It's potentially this energetic, dynamic broadcaster and receiver.
It certainly paints a different picture. More active, more interconnected, which brings up a final point from the sources, something for you listening to consider. They state these wave structures, these replicas, they're invisible to our eyes. You need special film to even detect them. So, what does it mean to you, this possibility of a whole layer of genetic memory and operation that exists completely outside our normal perception? Something to think about.